I'd like to welcome you to the first video in a video series I'm calling Affinity 10. My name is Nick with TDG. The focus of my Affinity 10 videos will be to give you the information on a topic you're looking for in 10 minutes or less with no filler. In future course videos and deep dive videos, I'll go into particular topics in much greater detail. To start this series off, I felt it's important to understand how to create a new document inside of Affinity Publisher. Before we can unlock all the power and features that Affinity Publisher offers us as creators, we first have to have our document set up correctly from the beginning. You want to make sure you check with your print provider to get all of the applicable settings for your project, such as the color profiles, margins, and bleed, and this will save a lot of frustration later when you go to have your project produced. Currently, right now, I'm looking at the new Document Setup Studio panel. If this panel is not available to you, it may be because at some point you have chosen to uncheckmark Show on Startup. If that's the case, you just go underneath the File menu, click on New, and you'll get the new Document Studio panel back, and then you can recheckmark Show on Startup. We can also choose to open an existing file, a recent file, look at some templates, and some samples from this panel. Over on the left by default, Affinity gives us a wide variety of presets we can choose from when creating our document. Feel free to scroll through this list at your leisure. We're going to start with the US letter size of 11 inch by 8.5 inch for our project. We're going to modify these properties for a 7 inch by 5 inch postcard and then save this preset for future use so we don't have to go through the process of creating it all over again. Over on the right hand side, you'll notice we have a preview of our document. The white is the page itself, and the blue line is representative of the margin of our document. This dotted outline is representative of a facing pages layout, which we'll walk through as we continue through this setup. Starting in the Layout tab, the first item we're going to want to change is our document units. If this is not set to the unit of measure you're wanting to use, simply toggle down the menu list and choose the unit of measure you would like to go with. I'm going to stick with inches. I'm now going to change my page width to 7, my page height to 5, and since we are targeting print production, I want to make sure I leave my resolution set at 300, which is an industry standard. For the image placement, we'll get into greater detail what this refers to in future videos. I typically prefer to use Preferred Linked when setting up my documents. Underneath the Pages panel, we have the option for facing pages. If you're not familiar with what facing pages are, think of looking at a magazine or a book where you have a left page and a right page while you're looking at it, or a spread layout. Since we're doing a postcard setup, I'm going to uncheckmark facing pages, and you'll now see we just have a single page showing in our preview. I'm going to leave the Arrange set as horizontally, and I'm going to change my page numbers to 1. We can always add other pages once we're actually working inside of our document. Going over to the color profile, the color format is currently set to RGB, which is mainly meant for any type of electronic output, such as websites or devices. Since we're targeting printing, I want to make sure I change this down to CMYK8. The color profile I'm going to leave set at the default. If you do get a particular color profile from your print provider, you can choose that from the list available to us. Walking over to our margins, the margins once again is represented by this blue line, and different printers will refer to margins as different terminology. You may hear safe area, you may hear safe margins, or you may just hear margins. The margins contain all the important information inside of your document that you don't want to have possibly get cut off in the finishing process. One of the most common industry standards for most print projects is 1/4 inch. This does vary based on what type of output you're doing, which is why you also want to verify with your print provider what margins they prefer. I'm going to choose to click on the chain link over here to link all of my margins together, so when I change one of these, the other 3 will change along with it. I'm going to change this to be 0.25. I'm going to hit my Tab key, and now the other 3 have changed along with it. And you'll notice in our preview, we now have 1/4 inch margins in the preview. Walking over to document bleed, we will get into bleed details in future videos, but I typically always set my documents up with bleed from the start. This just ensures that if I'm having it printed professionally, the bleed is already on my file and it will print exactly as I want it to print. A common industry standard for bleed is 1/8 of an inch or 0.125. So I'm going to change that to 0.125, and you'll notice on our document preview, we now have a red line that's representing the bleed. What the bleed mainly entails is if, for example, you have an image that's supposed to cover the entire page and you don't want to have any white margins showing on that page, you want to make sure that image extends to the bleed line. So when the printer cuts it, there are no white margins. In the preview you'll see on your screen, on the left-hand side, I have a document that has no bleed assigned to it, where it has a white margin going around the entire page. And on the right-hand side, we have a document that has bleed assigned to it, where part of the design does not have a white margin going around it. Getting back to our document setup, now that we have these settings set the way we want them, we can look over at our document summary, and we'll see we have a 7" by 5", our DPI is 300, our CMYK color value, and our color profile. Now, so we don't have to go through this each and every time we create a new document, particularly for a 7" by 5" postcard, I'm going to create a new preset by coming up here to the top and selecting Save Preset As. I'm now going to change this to say postcard. You can assign a particular category to it, and the categories are represented over here like press ready, for example. Up here is the print one. I'm just going to leave it set as default of print, and you can also change the icon to be a particular device, or in this case, a document icon. I'm going to say OK, and now in our presets, you'll notice over here, we have a postcard, and it's showing the 7" by 5" size. So the next time we come in here to create a new postcard, all we have to do is simply click on this preset, and all of our settings will be set for us and ready to go. Now with our document set and our presets saved, I can now click on Create, and we can now start diving into all of the features and tools that Affinity gives us when creating our document. Thank you for your time in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next session of Affinity 10.